The scalpel, a sliver of polished Soviet steel, hovers for 1/10 of a second. Below it, a patch of shaved gray fur. The animal's chest rises and falls in a shallow, metronomic rhythm, dictated by the hiss of the anesthesia machine. Dr. Eris Thorne does not look at the machine. He doesn't need to. His entire world has been reduced to a 3-centimeter incision site just behind the left ear of a Siamese cat named Patches. A bead of sweat traces a path from his temple down his jaw. He ignores it. His hands, the hands of a man once celebrated as Riga's finest veterinary surgeon, are rock steady. They have to be. To his left, Colonel Dmitry Volkov of the KGB's Directorate S watches, his face an unreadable mask of stone. Volkov isn't watching the cat. He is watching Thorne's hands. He has a file 3 inches thick detailing every success, every failure, every weakness of the man holding the scalpel. The file notes Thorne's exceptional skill with feline anatomy. It also notes his daughter's recent and easily revocable admission to Moscow State University. Volkov's presence is the true anesthetic in the room, numbing everything but the mission. On a sterile tray to Thorne's right lies the payload. It looks like a grain of rice, but a dark metallic gray. It is designated Product 17. Inside that grain of rice is a marvel of miniaturization, a device that has consumed the budget of a small city and the careers of 3 disgraced engineers. It contains a microphone sensitive enough to pick up a whisper from 10 meters, a transmitter powered by the host's own body heat, and a battery no larger than a pinhead, designed to last exactly 21 days. After 21 days, it will become inert. The mission has no second act. A red light on a panel across the room blinks once. A technician, a young man with the perpetually startled look of someone who knows too much, whispers, 5 minutes. The anesthetic is calculated to the second. 5 more minutes, and the cat's vital signs will begin to degrade. 10 minutes, and it will suffer irreversible neurological damage. The American ambassador's daughter will not be getting her pet back. The operation will be a failure. Colonel Volkov will ensure Dr. Thorne never sees his daughter again. Thorne takes a breath, holding it. He makes the incision, a clean cut, minimal bleeding. He uses a pair of micro-forceps to gently part the tissue, exposing the auricular cartilage. This is the point of no return. He picks up Product 17. The metal is cold against his latex glove. He has practiced this insertion on 24 strays from the alleys of East Berlin. None of them survived the procedure. This one must. The fate of the upcoming Vienna arms limitation talks and the strategic balance of power in Europe now rests on the steady hand of a terrified veterinarian and the unsuspecting nervous system of an ambassador's cat. The clock is ticking. The red light blinks again. 4 minutes. The silence in the makeshift operating theater, a soundproofed basement room in what was once a bakery, is absolute. It is the silence of immense pressure, of a secret war being fought not with armies and tanks, but with scalpels, microtransmitters, and stolen pets. This is Moscow's answer to an impossible problem: the complete and total information lockdown of the new American embassy in Prague. The problem, as outlined in a crimson-stamped dossier delivered to the head of the 8th Chief Directorate, was simple and catastrophic. The American embassy in Prague, designated Target Obelisk, was a black hole. For 18 months, every attempt to penetrate its walls had ended in failure. In May 1971, Agent Sparrow, a Czech national working as a code clerk, was identified and turned by the CIA's station chief, a man named Elias Reed. Sparrow now fed Moscow carefully curated disinformation. In September 1971, A team from the 12th Department attempted to install a laser microphone system on the roof of the adjacent Czech Ministry of Culture. They were detected by newly installed American microwave field disturbance sensors. The operation was aborted, the team barely escaping, but the attempt exposed a key KGB methodology. In January 1972, a listening device concealed within a replica of the Great Seal of the United States, a gift from a friendly diplomat, was discovered by a U.S. Marine Technical Surveillance Countermeasures (TSCM) team during a routine sweep. The device, a passive cavity resonator, was state-of-the-art. It had no power source and was activated by an external microwave beam. Its discovery was a profound humiliation. The CIA didn't just remove the bug. They left it in place, using it to transmit recordings of polka music 24 hours a day for a week, before quietly returning the seal with a note that read, "Thank you for the music." The message was clear. Obelisk was impenetrable. The new ambassador, Arthur Vance, was a different breed. He wasn't a political appointee, he was a career diplomat, a quiet, methodical operator who had served in Moscow and understood the game. His arrival coincided with the final stages of the embassy's security refit. The building was now a fortress, a SIF on Vltava, a sensitive compartmented information facility on the banks of the river. The windows were coated with a metallic film to block laser listening devices. The walls were opaque to radio frequencies. The entire structure was subject to random, unscheduled electronic sweeps by Reed's hyper-vigilant team of technicians. The intelligence bleeding from Prague had stopped. This was unacceptable. Secret back-channel talks were underway within Obelisk's walls, discussions between Vance and a dissident faction within the Warsaw Pact, aimed at loosening the Kremlin's grip on Eastern Europe. Moscow knew these talks were happening, but they had no details. Who was involved? What was being offered? It was a blind spot at the most critical juncture of the Cold War. The order came directly from Yuri Andropov, the chairman of the KGB. Find a way inside, anyway. The task fell to Colonel Dmitry Volkov. Volkov was not a man for subtleties. He was forged in the brutal suppression of the Hungarian uprising in '56. His specialty was wet affairs, assassinations and kidnappings. But for this, he was assigned to Directorate S, the Department for Illegals and Unconventional Operations. He was given unlimited resources and a single mandate: succeed where all others had failed. For 3 months, Volkov's team conducted 24/7 surveillance on the embassy and its personnel. They compiled exhaustive files on every American inside its walls. They documented every routine, every weakness, every vice. The Marine Guards had mistresses. The economic attaché had a gambling problem. The deputy chief of mission was a functioning alcoholic. All were vulnerabilities, but all were conventional. The CIA station chief, Reed, would be watching for exactly these kinds of approaches. They were traps. Volkov needed something Reed would never expect. He needed a vector that bypassed human fallibility. The breakthrough came from a junior analyst in Department 12, a young woman named Anya Petrova. Her job was to sift through the social exhaust of the embassy staff: garbage, discarded letters, background chatter from local staff. For weeks, she found nothing. Then, she noticed a recurring pattern in the purchase orders for the embassy commissary: a specific brand of American cat food, canned salmon, a significant quantity, ordered weekly. A cross-reference with diplomatic personnel files brought up Ambassador Vance's family profile. He had a wife, Eleanor, and a 12-year-old daughter, Sarah. A final check with assets among the local Czech staff confirmed it. The Vances had a pet, a Siamese cat named Patches, a gift to Sarah for her birthday. The cat was the center of the girl's world. And, according to surveillance reports, the cat was allowed to roam freely. Not just within the family's private residence, but throughout the entire embassy. It was often seen sleeping on desks in the political section, curling up on the warm telex machines in the communications room, and, most importantly, following Ambassador Vance into his soundproofed, electronically swept office. The very heart of Target Obelisk. The cat was a key, a biological key that could walk past every guard and every electronic sensor. Anya Petrova's report, initially dismissed as frivolous, was flagged and sent up the chain of command. It landed on Volkov's desk. He read it twice. The audacity of it, the sheer unconventionality, appealed to his nature. It was absurd. It was unpredictable. It was perfect. The operation was codenamed Projekt Felix, or Project Felix. The plan was terrifyingly simple in its concept, monstrously complex in its execution. Step 1, acquire the asset. Step 2, implant product 17. Step 3, return the asset to its operating environment. Step 4, listen. To execute this, Volkov assembled a specialist team. He needed a surgeon. He found Dr. Aris Thorn in Riga. Thorn was a Latvian national, a brilliant veterinarian with a shadowed past. His father had been a suspected collaborator with the West, a black mark on the family record. Thorn's daughter, a gifted pianist, had been denied entry to the Moscow Conservatory twice on political grounds. Volkov's department arranged for her third application to be successful. They moved her to a comfortable apartment in Moscow. Dr. Thorn was then invited to East Berlin for a consultation. In a gray, windowless room, Volkov explained the situation. Thorn would perform a highly experimental procedure for the state. If he succeeded, his daughter's future in Moscow would be assured. If he refused, or if he failed, she would be expelled, and his own past would be subject to a new, more thorough investigation. Thorn understood. His hands were now instruments of the state. The second team member was the engineer, a man known only as Nikolai. He was the lead designer of Product 17. A quiet, obsessive genius from the secret city of Arzamas 16, Nikolai had spent 5 years shrinking military-grade listening technology. His first prototype was the size of a matchbox. His second, the size of a sugar cube. Product 17 was his masterpiece. The microphone was designed to be placed in the ear canal, using the cat's own auditory structure to amplify sound. The transmitter was a subdermal implant, placed along the spine to use the animal's skeleton as a crude but effective antenna. The power source was the most revolutionary and most dangerous element. It was a thermoelectric generator, designed to convert the cat's 101.5 degree Fahrenheit body temperature into millivolts of electricity. It was untested in a live biological host for more than a few hours. Nikolai was not confident it wouldn't eventually poison the animal. Volkov did not care. He needed 21 days. The final piece was the target itself, Arthur Vance. Vance was a formidable opponent. A graduate of Princeton's School of Public and International Affairs, he was a student of Russian history and fluent in the language. He had served at the U.S. consulate in Leningrad during the height of the Khrushchev thaw. He understood the Soviet mindset, its paranoia, its patience, its brutality. He was not easily fooled. His one known sentimentality was his family, particularly his daughter Sarah. The psychological profile compiled by the KGB's 5th Directorate noted that Vance was fiercely protective of his daughter's happiness, especially given the isolating nature of diplomatic life behind the Iron Curtain. This attachment was the fulcrum on which the entire operation would pivot. The genesis of Project Felix was now complete. The players were in place, the technology was ready, the chessboard was set in Prague. All that was needed was the cat. The plan to acquire the asset was a study in precision and patience. For 2 weeks, a 3-man surveillance team from the KGB's 7th Directorate did nothing but observe Patches the cat. They used long-lens cameras from a safe house across the street. They logged its habits. It left the embassy grounds every morning at approximately 7:15 a.m., exploring the gardens of the adjacent Schönborn Palace. It returned for its meal at 9 a.m. In the afternoon, it would often sun itself on a low wall bordering the Trzeźnia Street. This was its moment of maximum vulnerability. The abduction was scheduled for a Tuesday. The team consisted of a driver and 2 operatives. The operatives had spent a week practicing. Their task was to snatch the cat without causing a struggle, without leaving any witnesses, and without harming the animal. They used a custom-designed cage, baited with a paste made from the same brand of American salmon the embassy ordered. On the chosen day, the gray Škoda sedan parked 100 meters down the street. The operatives, dressed as city maintenance workers, approached the wall. The cat was there, as predicted. One operative created a minor diversion, dropping a metal toolbox. As pedestrians turned to look, the second operative swiftly and silently scooped up the cat, placing it in the baited cage. The entire event took less than 4 seconds. By the time anyone looked back at the wall, the cat and the workers were gone. The Škoda pulled away from the curb, melting into the Prague traffic. Patches was now in the hands of the KGB. The cat was transported immediately to a secure facility on the outskirts of the city, the converted bakery where Dr. Thorn and Nikolai were waiting. The building was a ghost. It had been officially condemned for demolition, but was maintained by the STB, the Czech secret police, as an unlisted operational site. It was soundproofed, electronically shielded, and had its own power generator. Inside, one of the basement rooms had been converted into a state-of-the-art surgical suite. The cat was sedated and prepped. Dr. Thorn began his work. The first incision was for the transmitter, a delicate procedure to create a subdermal pocket along the thoracic vertebrae. The device, flat and flexible, was slipped into place. The incision was closed with 3 microscopic, dissolvable sutures. The second and far more complex part was the insertion of the microphone and power source into the ear canal. This was uncharted territory. Thorn had to navigate around the delicate cochlea and the vestibular system. A mistake of a single millimeter could permanently destroy the cat's sense of balance or hearing. If the cat was returned with a noticeable head tilt or deafness, the Vances would take it to a vet. The game would be over. Using a surgical microscope, Thorn worked for 93 minutes. He anchored the device to the auricular cartilage with a biocompatible adhesive developed by Nikolai. The antenna, a filament thinner than a human hair, was threaded just under the skin, terminating near the base of the skull. The operation was a technical success. The cat was stable. But as Patches was moved to recovery, the first setback occurred. A technician monitoring the cat's vitals noticed an alarming spike in its histamine levels. A rash was forming around the transmitter incision. The cat's body was rejecting the implant's casing. It was a rare 1 in 1,000 allergic reaction to the specific polymer Nikolai had used. Panic flickered in the room. If the reaction continued, it would cause a severe lesion, an obvious wound that would betray the entire operation. Volkov turned to Thorn. "Fix it." Thorn knew he had one option, a high-risk one. He would need to reopen the incision, remove the transmitter, coat it in a thin layer of sterilized beeswax, a neutral, organic substance he hoped the cat's immune system would ignore, and re-implant it. It meant putting the animal under anesthesia for a second time in 12 hours, drastically increasing the risk of cardiac arrest. There was no choice. For another hour, Thorne worked, his hands slick with sweat inside his gloves. The second procedure was successful. The histamine levels began to drop. They had lost 7 hours. This delay triggered the second complication. The plan was to find the cat and return it within 24 hours, minimizing the family's distress. But by now, 12-year-old Sarah Vance was inconsolable. Ambassador Vance, seeing his daughter's pain, did something the KGB had not anticipated. He broke protocol. Instead of using his own security staff to make discreet inquiries, he personally called the chief of the Prague police, a man he had cultivated as a friendly contact, and asked for his help in finding his daughter's missing pet. The request was framed as a personal favor, a father's plea. The police chief, eager to please the American ambassador, agreed immediately. Within hours, posters of Patches, hastily printed by the embassy, were appearing around the Malastrana district. A small story even ran in the local evening paper. Project Felix, an operation of utmost secrecy, was suddenly a public spectacle. Volkov was furious. His asset was now famous. He couldn't simply have a good citizen return the cat. The story would be scrutinized. The return had to be managed with extreme care. The pressure was escalating. It was at this point that the third and most dangerous setback landed. A coded message arrived from Moscow Center. A low-level asset within the U.S. Embassy's local procurement office had reported a query from the CIA station. Elias Reed's office had requested a list of all veterinary surgical suppliers in the Prague district that had received unusual orders for specific types of anesthetics and micro-sutures in the past month. Reed had no specific target. It was a routine, speculative data trawl, the kind of thing a paranoid but thorough station chief does to look for anomalies. But one of the suppliers on that list was a front company used by the STB to equip the secret facility where Patches was being held. Reed was sniffing at the edges of their operation. He hadn't found them yet, but the hunter was now aware that something was in the woods. Volkov made a decision. The timeline was to be crushed. The cat would be returned tonight. There was no more time for observation or a slow recovery. He ordered the technician to give the cat a stimulant to counteract the lingering effects of the anesthesia. He devised a new return scenario. A junior STB officer, posing as a night watchman, would find the cat wandering near the Petchin Hill funicular, miles from the embassy, and bring it to the local police station. The police chief, already alerted by Vance, would then have the honor of personally returning the ambassador's cat, making him a hero and cementing his relationship with Vance. It was a clean narrative. It was also incredibly risky. If the cat was still groggy, if its wounds hadn't healed sufficiently, if it behaved strangely, the entire mission could unravel right in the ambassador's living room. Nikolai did a final check on the implant. The transmitter was active. The microphone was picking up the low hum of the room's ventilation system. He nodded to Volkov. Product 17 is online. The cat, blinking slowly under the fluorescent lights, was placed in a carrier. The fate of Central Europe was about to be placed in the paws of a very confused Siamese. 10:47 p.m. The STB officer's call is placed to the Prague police headquarters. He reports finding a cat matching the description from the evening paper. He sounds slightly bored, a man at the end of a long shift. The performance is flawless. 11:12 p.m. The police chief receives the news. He is ecstatic. He immediately calls the U.S. Embassy, asking to be patched through to Ambassador Vance's residence. He informs the ambassador that his daughter's cat has been found, safe and sound. He will bring it over personally. 11:38 p.m. A black Tatra 603, the official car of the Prague police chief, pulls up to the main gate of the U.S. Embassy. Inside the KGB listening post, a converted apartment 2 blocks away, Volkov and his team listen to the radio traffic from a bug they have on the chief's car. They hear him speaking to the Marine Guard, his voice full of pride. The package is being delivered. 11:42 p.m. The handoff. Ambassador Vance meets the police chief in the embassy's main foyer. Sarah, woken by the news, runs down the stairs. The moment is exactly as the KGB's psychological profile predicted. The reunion is emotional. The cat is held by Sarah, who buries her face in its fur. In the listening post, Nikolai fine-tunes the receiver. Through a wash of static, he isolates the frequency from product 17. The first sounds come through: the muffled fabric of a girl's pajamas, a child's happy crying, the deep, relieved voice of Ambassador Vance thanking the police chief. The microphone works. The asset is inside. 12:15 a.m. The Vances and Patches are back in their private residence on the embassy's 3rd floor. The cat, still slightly disoriented, drinks a bowl of water and curls up in its favorite chair. The team in the listening post hears only the ticking of a grandfather clock and the low murmur of the ambassador and his wife talking. The transmission is clear. The quality is better than Nikolai had dared to hope. For the next 6 hours, the asset sleeps. The team listens to it purring. This is the mundane reality of espionage. Hours of silence punctuated by moments of pure gold. 7 a.m. The Vance residence stirs. The team hears the ambassador preparing for his day. They hear the clink of a coffee cup, the rustle of a newspaper. The cat follows him from the kitchen to his study. 8:30 a.m. The first test. Ambassador Vance makes an unclassified call to the State Department on an open line. He discusses scheduling matters. The team transcribes every word, comparing the recording from Product 17 to a recording from a long-range parabolic microphone aimed at the embassy window. The quality from the cat is infinitely superior. There is no glass distortion, no background street noise. It is as if they are standing in the room. 2:10 p.m. The asset wanders. It leaves the residence and explores the second-floor political section. The team hears the clatter of typewriters, snippets of conversation about visa applications and trade reports. It is low-level intelligence, but it proves the concept. The asset has free roam capability. 4:55 p.m. A moment of tension. The cat wanders into the Marine Security office. A young corporal, bored on his shift, picks it up. "Hey there, little guy. You're not supposed to be in here." For 30 seconds, the team listens to the corporal scratching the cat behind the ears. The microphone transmits the sound with perfect fidelity. If he notices the tiny, almost invisible scar from Thorne's incision, the operation is blown. He doesn't. He puts the cat down outside the door and closes it. Volkov allows himself a rare, thin smile. 9 p.m., the moment they have been waiting for. Ambassador Vance returns to his study. It is a secure room, the bubble. Before entering, he activates a white noise generator built into the walls, designed to defeat any listening devices. To the KGB's external sensors, the room is now silent, a void. But inside the room, the asset is already there, curled on a leather-bound dictionary on the corner of Vance's desk. 9:02 p.m. Vance picks up the secure telephone, ASTU-3 cryptographic unit, connected directly to a dedicated satellite link. This phone is the Holy Grail. Conversations on this line are considered completely impervious to interception. 9:03 p.m. Vance places a call. The team in the listening post hears the electronic handshake of the encryption system. Then, a voice. It's not the State Department. The accent is German. Vance is speaking to someone in Bonn. He speaks in low, measured tones. The cat less than 3 feet away twitches its ear. Product 17 transmits every syllable. Nikolai and a linguist work in tandem, one monitoring the signal, the other transcribing furiously, his pen flying across a notepad. Vance is discussing NATO troop movements. He is referencing Operation Glad Tidings, a contingency plan Moscow has never heard of. He is naming a specific contact, a high-ranking general in the East German Army. It's a conspiracy, a plot. It is the intelligence jackpot. For 17 minutes, Ambassador Vance details a secret plan to destabilize the Warsaw Pact, leveraging internal dissent. The information is explosive. It is more than Volkov could have ever imagined. It is a complete validation of his monstrous, absurd plan. In the listening post, there is no celebration. Only the quiet, frantic scratching of the linguist's pen, capturing the secrets that would reshape the Cold War, all delivered by a purring Siamese cat. The 17 minutes of audio from the ambassador's study were a strategic earthquake. The transcript was encoded and sent via diplomatic pouch on the first flight to Moscow. It landed directly on Andropov's desk. The contents confirmed the Kremlin's deepest fears. A Western-backed plot to fracture the Warsaw Pact from within, using a high-ranking East German general as a linchpin. The response was immediate and brutal. The Stasi, East Germany's secret police, were given the general's name. Within 48 hours, he was arrested, charged with treason, and disappeared into the bowels of their Hohenschönhausen prison. A quiet but thorough purge of his known associates began. The back-channel talks collapsed overnight. Ambassador Vance's dissident network was decapitated before it could ever truly form. From the KGB's perspective, Project Felix was an unprecedented success. They had bypassed the impenetrable fortress of Target Obelisk and neutralized a major strategic threat. But their success created a new, complex problem. The asset. Patches was still in the embassy. Product 17 was still transmitting. The thermoelectric power source, however, was showing signs of decay. Nikolai's projections showed its power output dropping faster than expected. He now estimated a total operational life of only 10 days, not 21. This left Volkov with a dangerous choice. He could attempt to retrieve the cat and the priceless technology within it, a high-risk extraction that could expose the entire method. Or he could leave it, allowing the device to die and the secret to remain safe, but sacrificing the hardware. While they debated, the cat made the decision for them. On the 8th day after its return, Patches became lethargic. It refused its food. A day later, it developed a slight fever. The thermoelectric generator, as Nikolai had secretly feared, was slowly poisoning the animal. The metallic alloys were leaching into its bloodstream. In the listening post, the team heard the worried conversations of the Vance family. They heard Sarah crying. They heard Ambassador Vance call the embassy's medical officer to ask for a recommendation for the best veterinarian in Prague. This was the endgame. The cat would be taken for a medical examination. It would be x-rayed. The implants would be discovered. The entire operation, the source of their stunning intelligence coup, would be laid bare. The Americans would know not only that they had been compromised, but exactly how. The method, the ultimate secret, would be lost forever. The final revelation, however, did not come from a veterinarian's X-ray. It came from a single, encrypted, one-word message sent from a CIA asset inside Moscow Center to the Langley station. The message was, Felix. For CIA Station Chief Elias Reed, that one word was the key that unlocked everything. He had been chasing ghosts for weeks. The sudden arrest of the East German general had stunned the West. It was a catastrophic intelligence failure. The general was their man, the cornerstone of a decade of careful network building. The leak could only have come from one place: Ambassador Vance's secure communications inside the embassy. Reed's TSCM team had swept the ambassador's office 3 times since the general's arrest. They found nothing. The STU-3 phone was secure. It was impossible. The message, Felix, provided the missing piece of the puzzle. Reed's analysts searched their databases. Felix the cat was a famous cartoon character. The word was Latin for cat. Reed remembered the ambassador's frantic search for his daughter's missing pet nearly 2 weeks ago. He remembered the strange, out-of-the-blue request for a list of veterinary suppliers. He had dismissed it as a dead end. Now he saw the connection. The timeline matched perfectly. The cat disappeared. The general was arrested days after its return. It was an idea so insane, so audacious, that only the KGB would attempt it. He went to Ambassador Vance's office and closed the door. He didn't speak. He simply handed the ambassador a note with 3 words written on it. The cat is listening. Vance read the note, his face draining of color. He looked at Patches, sleeping peacefully on his bookshelf. The betrayal was not just professional. It was personal. They had weaponized his daughter's love for her pet. The legacy of Project Felix was not the intelligence the KGB gathered. It was the intelligence the CIA gave them. The critical 17-minute conversation between Ambassador Vance and the German contact in Bonn had not been real. The man on the other end of the line was a CIA linguist at a secure facility in Frankfurt, playing a role.